Thanks, buddy.
Don't thank me.
Welcome to Monster High.
In early 2021, it has been announced by Mattel that the Monster High brand will return for a new generation, which not only includes a new series of dolls and playsets, but also an animated series and a live-action movie that will premiere on Nick and Paramount Plus here in the US the following year. It makes a lot of sense on why Monster High's live-action film and animated series would premiere on Nick of all places, especially for me, because I remember when the channel would air Monster High specials and movies as far back as New Ghoul at school. Even General Manager of Mattel Television, Fred Soley, mentioned Nick's involvement with 𝘵𝘰𝘰𝘠𝘬, stating, "Nickelodeon shares their passion for the brand and its purpose, having worked on the franchise when it first launched more than a decade ago. They are the ideal partners for bringing these beloved characters and their stories to life through episodic television and the live-action television movie." A year afterwards, more and more info on Monster High's third generation started to surface, including trailers and TV spots for the live-action Monster High movie, set to release on October 6th of this year. Prior to the film's release, a lot of fans of the doll line were pretty mixed on the overall direction the film is going for, with some liking it and others not being a fan of what's been shown. And while there are some valid criticisms addressed, the dumbest one I've heard is that the movie looks cheap and not that great. To which I'm like, it's a TV movie. Of course it's gonna not look all that expensive. And this is coming from someone who's watched A Fairly Odd Christmas, another live-action TV movie based on a pre-existing property that aired on Nickelodeon all those years ago.
Don't miss A Fairly Odd Christmas. The brand new movie premieres Thursday at 7. Only on Nick.
That might not sound like much, but I'm sure you get the idea if you watched any live-action TV movie from any kids network. Now, since the recent Monster High movie finally released, what do I think of it? I might be pretty late to the party for reviewing this, but personally, I don't fucking care, cause there's a part of me that still has the mighty need to talk about this anyway. So the plot revolves around the half-human, half-werewolf ghoul Claudine, now 15 years old, attending Monster High due to spending a vast majority of her life in the shadows. During her stay, she starts to notice that a certain threat is planning to destroy the school, possibly due to her being half-human. Not all hope is lost, however, as during her first class, Claudine learns about the serum Eddie Hyde made in order to become a full-blooded monster, which is hidden in his secret lab. With help from her new ghoul friends Frankie Stein and 𝘧𝘂𝑢𝑟𝑎, Claudine is destined to find the lab and drink Eddie's serum in an attempt to be one with Monster High. In all honesty, this movie's quite a mixed bag for me. There's some good moments to point out and others, not so much if I'm being honest. There are some scenes where the copious amounts of dialogue spoken by the characters makes it hard for the silence to give enough room to breathe. There's a weird fart joke, and there's a small error on the drink Abby got from the coffin bean, and I'm especially not a fan of some of the editing and effects they went with. They're okay at best, and at worst, very hard to swallow and take seriously. With this being a new interpretation, it's not surprising that there would be some changes made to the source material it's based on, especially with the characters that we've known for years, some of which are very major, such as Frankie Stein being non-binary, 𝘧𝘂𝑢𝑟𝑎 learning witchy spells, Ghoulia Yelps having the ability to speak, etc. It's definitely gonna take some time to get used to and see this as its own separate thing rather than compare it to what we used to grow up with. Nostalgia may be strong, but it ain't strong enough for us to try something new. However, and I know I'm not the first, nor the last person to say this, but I'm not that fond on what they did with Heath Burns. To me, he looks like the worst kind of Halloween costume you can think of. As for the actors who portrayed the characters, they did a solid job. I'm especially fascinated with CC Balagot's performance of Frankie Stein.
Frankie is into fashion, friends, and school. Name's Frankie, non-binary, pronouns they, them.
I might be the only one to point this out, but Frankie's overall personality in this film, especially with how they try to fit in with the students, kind of reminds me a bit of Robot Jones.
Frankie is a little slow to make friends, but that's just because they're an acquired taste.
Hello, fellow students. I also have a phone.
Good morning, humans.
It talks! Nerd.
For a made-for-TV/streaming movie, the set designs are actually pretty good, such as the interior of the school's main entrance and the room the three main ghouls we follow share, for example. Probably the biggest strength this movie has to offer for me is the musical numbers that are featured throughout. Yep, this movie's a musical. The only song I'm not that much of a fan of is True Monster High. To me, it felt very forgettable, especially once it's over. Now's the part of the video where I talk about some spoilers involving the story and what I think about it. So if you've never seen the movie, make sure to skip this timestamp on screen right now. We good? Thought so. So this movie follows a similar conflict 𝘰𝘕𝘠𝘦 tackled with the whole humans bad, monsters good shtick, especially now that this gen's 𝘚𝘚 is half human, half monster, which, the more I think about it, is more accurate to the monster she's based off of. You know, the werewolf. A creature that may look like your average Joe, but when exposed to a nearby full moon, turns into a wolf. As I mentioned early on when summarizing the film's plot is that during class, Claudine learns about 𝘵𝑦𝘰𝘸𝘺, who was expelled from Monster High and killed by human hunters after his human side was discovered. But beforehand, he made a serum that has the potential to turn him into 100% monster. The teacher lecturing this is none other than 𝘵𝑗𝑚𝑜s. Keep this in mind once I talk about the climax, who was one of three to catch the main trio in the act after 𝘚𝑬𝑒𝑗𝑚𝑜s failed attempt to open the entrance to Eddie's lab, which contains the serum Claudine's after. The school, which is alive by the way, then starts to quake, leading Headmistress Bloodgood to realize that there's an unmonster heart among this place. Claudine believes she's putting Monster High at risk and decides to return back to the human world. A day later, 𝘚𝑬𝑒𝑗𝑚𝑜 and Frankie find her, explaining that they're still her friends no matter what, which afterwards discovered that in order to enter Eddie's lab, Claudine must use her human hand to activate the entrance. I was going to point it out as some sort of continuity error, like, why not do that early on? But upon rewatching some bits and pieces of that scene, I noticed that doesn't seem to be the case. Whoopsies! Upon entering the lab and finding the serum, the ghouls are then interrupted by 𝘵𝑗𝑚𝑜s, who turns out is not only the movie's main villain, but also the son of 𝘵𝑦𝘰𝑸𝑺. So, this basically means that Jackson and Holt don't exist in this universe. Wouldn't be surprised if fans of those characters are pissed about that information. Throughout the course of the movie up until that point, my brain was debating if whether or not 𝘵𝑗𝑚𝑜s would be the villain, especially during the first few seconds of when he finds the main ghouls in Eddie's lab. But nope, he's the villain alright. A twist villain at that. To be fair, this movie kind of did play me like a damn fiddle there. Outside of that strange reveal, the overall story is alright, with some ideas that could have been better fleshed out more had the scriptwriters been given more time. But even I had to admit that whole romantic subplot between Claudine and Deuce felt strange and unneeded, even for those who didn't headcanon Claudine as a lesbian. All in all, I personally find the live-action Monster High movie to be not all that good, but not all that bad either. There are definitely some moments that could have been better executed, but for what it is, it's still a solid made-for-TV Halloween flick for kids. If you grew up with a doll line and are curious to see this movie for yourself, go for it. I ain't gonna stop you. But if you have seen the movie, feel free to let me know what you think of it down below.
We are Monster High.
The first ever Monster High DVD.
School to rule. See how ghouls take back their school. Starring Frankie, Claudine, 𝘚𝑬𝑒𝑗𝑚𝑜, and 𝘵𝑗𝑚𝑜 in the Monster High School dance party.
Decorations are fantabulous. Style is freaky fabulous.
What do cool ghouls hide behind the mask?
Thought you'd never ask.
Monster High Girls in High School League sold separately. DVD coming soon. Monster High Ghouls Rule. You can own it on DVD October 9th.
Yeah!